Hello and welcome to another episode of the English Talk community. I'm Julia, and I'm so happy you're here with me today. Whether you're walking to work, cooking dinner, or just taking a break to practice some English, this moment is for you. It's your space to grow, reflect, and take one small, brave step forward in your English journey. So let me start with a question that might sound familiar to many of you. Have you ever tried to speak English out loud, but your mouth just didn't cooperate? You know exactly what you want to say, but somehow the words get stuck, tangled, or come out sounding nothing like what you imagined. If that's ever happened to you, please know you are not alone. That frustration is something so many English learners around the world face, and today we're going to tackle it in a way that's actually fun. In this episode, I want to invite you to play with language. Yes, play. Because today we're going to talk about a tool that actors, public speakers, and language learners have used for decades, tongue twisters. You might think they're just silly phrases for children, but actually, tongue twisters are powerful pronunciation tools. They help you slow down, focus on sounds, improve your articulation, and train your mouth to move in new ways. And the best part? They're short, memorable, and you can practice them anytime, alone, out loud, or even silently in your head. Before we jump into it, let me tell you a quick story. A few months ago, I was working with a student named Lucas, a graphic design student from Madrid. Lucas had great vocabulary and grammar, but every time he had to speak English in class, his words felt stiff and awkward. He told me, "Julia, I know what I want to say, but it's like my mouth doesn't want to say it." So we tried something different. We didn't focus on grammar or new vocabulary. Instead, we spent just 5 minutes a day on tongue twisters. We chose one phrase, broke it into parts, and practiced it slowly, like a warm-up. In less than 2 weeks, Lucas noticed something amazing. His speech started to flow more naturally, and his confidence grew. He was still making small mistakes, sure, but he wasn't stuck anymore. He was communicating, "I want that for you, too. I want you to feel the freedom to speak without fear." That's why this episode is so important. Because improving your English pronunciation doesn't have to be boring or technical. It can be light, playful, and joyful. And if you stay with me until the end of this episode, I promise you'll leave with at least one new tool you can use every single day to train your pronunciation muscles. So here's a small challenge before we begin. Think of the last time you avoided speaking English because you were afraid of saying something wrong. Just take a moment to remember how that felt. Maybe it was at work, during a video call, or at a cafe when the waiter spoke to you in English. Maybe your heart raced a little, your mind went blank, or you just smiled and nodded instead of answering. If you've ever had a moment like that, then this episode is especially for you. Because the more you avoid speaking, the more those fears grow. And the only way to overcome them is to practice speaking, even if it's just a few minutes a day, with tools that make you feel in control. I know that for many of you, English is not just a language, it's a key to your goals. Maybe you want a better job, travel opportunities, or to connect with people from all over the world. But sometimes, pronunciation feels like a barrier, especially when native speakers don't understand you right away. And that hurts. I get it. That's why I want to say this clearly: you do not need a perfect accent to speak English well. What you need is clarity, rhythm, and the ability to speak with confidence. That's what we're building here, together, now. If you find this kind of content helpful, if you enjoy learning through real stories and practical examples, I'd love for you to support this podcast. Just hit the like button, leave a quick review, or share this episode with a friend who's also learning English. It's a small action that helps us reach more learners around the world, just like you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. That way, you won't miss our weekly episodes filled with strategies, stories, and real conversations to help you speak English with more confidence. I want you to feel like you're sitting here with me, just the two of us having a relaxed chat. No pressure, no grammar drills, just connection. So take a deep breath, shake off the nerves, and allow yourself to have fun with this. That's the energy we're bringing into this episode. When you stop chasing perfection and start enjoying the process, everything changes. I know it can feel intimidating at first. You might laugh or feel silly when trying to say a tricky sentence. Like she sells seashells by the seashore, but I promise, even those awkward moments are part of your growth. The more you laugh, the more you relax. And the more you relax, the more natural your English will become. This is about letting go of fear and embracing the small, daily steps that lead to real fluency. So today, we're going to explore a few tongue twisters that focus on the most common sounds English learners struggle with. I'll walk you through them step by step. You'll repeat them with me. You'll mess up sometimes. And that's okay. Because every time you practice, even just a little, you're building stronger pronunciation habits. And the more you do it, the more automatic it becomes. I've seen this transformation over and over again. I've watched students go from whispering in class to leading presentations. From avoiding conversations to starting them. And it didn't happen overnight. It happened through small, consistent efforts, like the ones we'll make together today. This episode isn't about showing off perfect speech. It's about training your mouth and your brain to work together so your voice can finally say what your mind already knows. So get ready to twist your tongue, laugh a little, and train your way to clearer, more confident English. I'm right here with you, every step of the way. Let's begin. If you've ever felt like your mouth can't keep up with your thoughts in English, you're definitely not alone. One of the most common things I hear from learners is, I know what I want to say, but I just can't say it fast enough, or I say it, but it doesn't sound natural. That's where tongue twisters come in. They might seem like simple language games, but behind the fun, there's a powerful tool for improving your pronunciation, fluency, and even your confidence when speaking English out loud. Tongue twisters are phrases that are deliberately designed to be difficult to pronounce, especially when spoken quickly. But that challenge is exactly what makes them useful. When you repeat a tongue twister, you're training your mouth to move in new, sometimes unfamiliar ways. You're pushing yourself to focus on clarity, speed, rhythm, and breath control, all essential skills for speaking English smoothly. Unlike grammar exercises or vocabulary drills, tongue twisters get your body involved. Your jaw, your tongue, your lips, every part of your speaking system gets a workout. The first benefit of tongue twisters is improved articulation. Articulation is your ability to pronounce sounds clearly and accurately. If you've ever been misunderstood because your consonants blended together or a vowel sounded too soft, it's often an articulation issue. Tongue twisters force you to pay attention to each sound, to exaggerate them at first, and eventually to produce them more clearly in normal conversation. It's like lifting weights at the gym. The more you do it, the stronger and more controlled your muscles become. Let me give you a quick example. Take the phrase, she sells seashells by the seashore. If you say it quickly, your mouth will probably trip over the repeated S and SH sounds. But try slowing it down. She sells seashells by the seashore. Your tongue has to move with precision. If you repeat it 5 times slowly, and then gradually pick up speed, you'll notice how your speech becomes sharper and more controlled. You're no longer just saying words, you're training for clarity. Now let's talk about fluency. A lot of learners think fluency just means speaking fast. But fluency is really about the flow of language. It's your ability to speak without long pauses or interruptions. It's when your thoughts and your words move together naturally. Practicing tongue twisters helps create that flow. The rhythm and repetition they require help your brain and your mouth coordinate better. You stop overthinking each word, and instead, you focus on the sound patterns, which makes your speech more fluid. Another way tongue twisters help is with speed control. You don't have to speak fast to be fluent, but you do need to be able to adjust your speed. Some situations require slow, careful speech, like giving directions. Others might need faster, more casual speaking, like chatting with a friend. Practicing tongue twisters helps you build that flexibility. You start slow, then speed up as you feel more confident, then slow down again to regain control. This teaches you how to manage your pace when speaking in real conversations, and let's not forget about muscle memory. When you say something repeatedly, your mouth starts to remember it. It becomes automatic. You don't have to think about where to place your tongue or how to move your lips, it just happens. That's the beauty of tongue twisters. They help turn awkward, unfamiliar sounds into familiar patterns. And once those patterns become familiar, you can use them in real conversations without hesitation. Let me share something I've noticed from years of teaching. Some students focus too much on perfecting grammar, and they forget to actually speak. They get stuck in their heads, afraid to open their mouths. But the moment they try a tongue twister, even just once, they start laughing. And when they laugh, they relax. When they relax, their pronunciation improves. They stop fearing mistakes and start enjoying the process. That's when progress happens. Tongue twisters create a space where making mistakes is not only expected but actually part of the fun. One of my students, Jonas from Copenhagen, used to freeze during presentations at work. He had great English, but he mumbled when nervous, and it affected how people perceived him. I gave him a few tongue twisters to practice for 1 week, nothing too long, just short daily routines. He practiced them slowly in the mirror every morning. When we met again, his voice was stronger, clearer, and his confidence had visibly changed. He said, "It's strange, Julia. Just repeating silly sentences helped me feel more in control." That's the impact a small practice can have. Here's another phrase that works great: unique New York. Try saying that 10 times in a row. It's harder than it looks. You have to pause, reset, and stay focused. But as you repeat it, your tongue starts to adapt. Your brain tells your mouth, "We've done this before. We can do it again." That's what we want, familiarity. Because once you've practiced hard sounds in a tongue twister, saying words like unique or New York in conversation becomes much easier. One mistake learners often make is rushing. When they hear native speakers talk fast, they feel pressure to match that speed. But speaking quickly without control only creates more confusion. With tongue twisters, you learn to master speed after you've built control. You start slow, learn the shape of each sound, and then build up your pace. This method leads to speech that's not only faster but also clearer. Another advantage is how tongue twisters sharpen your listening. When you focus on small sound differences, like the difference between S and SH or B and P, you begin to hear English differently. Your ears become more sensitive to sound patterns. And when you hear better, you speak better. You start recognizing those sounds in real life, and your brain connects the dots more easily. Practicing tongue twisters also helps build discipline and focus. It takes concentration to repeat a phrase 5 or 10 times without losing your place. It's a mental workout. But it's short and manageable. Even 5 minutes a day makes a difference. And unlike long grammar lessons, tongue twisters give you instant feedback. If it sounds messy, you'll hear it. If it sounds better, you'll feel the difference. That awareness helps you self-correct in real conversations. So next time you're getting ready for a meeting, an interview, or just your daily practice, take a minute to warm up with a tongue twister. Treat it like stretching before a workout. You're not just warming up your mouth, you're preparing your whole system to speak more clearly and confidently. Let me tell you about Marco. He's a 26-year-old architecture student from Milan. And when I first met him, he was full of energy, always sketching ideas in his notebook, dreaming about working on international projects someday. He had been studying English for years, and his grammar and vocabulary were actually quite solid. But whenever he had to speak, something would change. He'd get quiet, hesitate, and you could see the frustration on his face. It wasn't that he didn't know what to say, he just didn't feel confident saying it. During one of our sessions, I asked him what bothered him most when speaking English. He thought for a second, then said, "It's the th sound. I can't say it. Every time I try, I feel ridiculous." That was the word he used, ridiculous. He said that even when he said something as simple as thank you, he'd avoid eye contact, speak quickly, or mumble to hide the sound. It had become a habit, a way of protecting himself from the embarrassment he expected every time he had to say something with th. I hear this often. The th sound is one of the most difficult for many learners because it doesn't exist in a lot of other languages. In Marco's case, Italian doesn't use that sound at all, so his mouth simply wasn't used to it. Every time he tried, it came out sounding more like an S or a hard T. And of course, the more self-conscious he became, the harder it was to say it clearly. This kind of fear can grow quietly, and before you know it, it starts to affect your overall confidence, not just your pronunciation. So I gave Marco a challenge. I didn't ask him to memorize any new vocabulary or grammar rules. Instead, I handed him a short tongue twister, 3 thin thieves thought 1,000 thoughts. I told him to say it slowly, once a day, out loud, for 1 week. That was it. No pressure to be perfect. No pressure to be fast. Just say it clearly, slowly, and listen to himself. At first, he laughed. He looked at the paper and said, "This is impossible." The first time he tried, it came out all wrong, muffled, fast, and awkward. But I reminded him, that's part of the process. It's supposed to feel strange. You're retraining your mouth, and that takes time. It's like learning to use a new tool, you don't expect it to feel natural right away. He promised to give it a try, just a few minutes each morning before starting his day. By the 3rd day, Marco messaged me a voice recording. You could hear that he was going slowly, almost mechanically, but already there was more clarity in the th sounds. He still stumbled over the rhythm, but the shape of the sound was starting to form. "I still sound like a robot," he joked, "but I'm getting it." What struck me most was not the improvement itself, but his tone. He sounded encouraged, more playful, and less tense. By the end of the week, he came to our session smiling. "You have to listen to this," he said, and played a new recording. This time, his voice was more fluid, the th sounds clearer and more consistent. Was it perfect? No. But it was real progress. And more importantly, he felt it. He told me, for the first time, I said thank you to someone in a store without feeling embarrassed. I didn't think, I just said it. That's the power of focused, repeated practice. When you isolate one sound and work with it daily in a short, fun phrase, your mouth starts to understand what to do. The tension begins to fade, and your brain gets the message, this is not dangerous. I can handle this. Marco didn't need years of correction or hundreds of grammar lessons. He just needed a way to practice one small part of speaking in a way that was consistent and kind to himself. He started including the tongue twister in his warm-up every morning. It became a short ritual: brush teeth, make coffee, repeat the phrase 5 times. That routine gave him structure and a sense of control over something that had once made him feel powerless. And soon, that one success opened the door for others. His voice got stronger, his sentences more fluid, and his confidence more visible in every conversation we had. What I loved most about Marco's journey is that it reminded me how small habits can lead to big breakthroughs. He didn't need to master every sound in English to feel more fluent. He just needed to overcome one barrier to feel like progress was possible. And that's a lesson for all of us. You don't have to fix everything at once. Start with one sound, one phrase, one twist of the tongue. Even now, months later, Marco still uses tongue twisters. He told me that before every presentation or phone call in English, he warms up with 3 thin thieves thought 1,000 thoughts. Not because he still struggles with the sound, but because it reminds him that he can push through discomfort. That he has the tools to improve, and that his voice is something he can trust. I want that kind of shift for every learner I work with. Not just improvement in pronunciation, but real, internal confidence. The kind that grows when you realize, this thing that scared me, I can actually do it. Marco's story is proof that change can start with something as simple as a sentence. One phrase, practiced with intention, can give you the power to speak without fear. Now that we've talked about why tongue twisters are such a powerful tool, let's actually practice one together. You don't need anything fancy, just your voice, a bit of focus, and a willingness to sound a little silly. And that's okay. Learning a language means letting go of being perfect and embracing the moments that feel awkward or strange. That's where real progress happens. So today, I'll guide you through an easy starter tongue twister that focuses on the S and SH sounds. These two are often confused by learners because they're similar in sound, but require different mouth positions and breath control. The phrase we're going to use is, she sees seashells on the seashore. It's short, simple, and filled with the kind of sound contrast that really helps improve your articulation. The SH in she and shells needs your lips to round slightly, with the air passing gently over the tongue. The S in C's and seashells requires a narrower, sharper airflow, with your tongue closer to your teeth. It may feel tricky at first, but I promise, with a little repetition and focus, you'll start to hear and feel the difference. Let's start by breaking it down slowly, word by word. I want you to say it along with me, but take your time. We're not trying to go fast. That's a common mistake. People hear tongue twister and think speed is the goal. But the real goal is clarity. You want to train your mouth to pronounce each sound with control and awareness. So let's go together. She sees seashells on the seashore. Nice and slow. Again, this time try to exaggerate the SH and S sounds a little. Feel the difference between she and sees. One is soft and round, the other is sharper and more focused. Now let's do it again, just a little smoother, but still slow. She sees seashells on the seashore. Let's do it one more time, together. She sees seashells on the seashore. You might already be noticing how your mouth moves in new ways. Your lips round more for she and shells. Your tongue works harder to separate the S from the SH. This is where the training happens. Your brain is telling your muscles, pay attention. Do it differently. And each time you repeat, those muscles learn. Now let's add one more layer. I want you to pay attention to the rhythm. English is a stress-timed language, which means we naturally emphasize some syllables more than others. In this phrase, we tend to stress the main content words. She sees seashells on the seashore. Try saying it with me, just like that. She sees seashells on the seashore. Let the rhythm carry you. Feel the little musical pattern. This helps your speech sound more natural, not just clear. And when clarity meets rhythm, your English becomes much easier for others to understand. Now, are you ready to try it a bit faster? Not too fast, just a little more fluid. Let's do it together, with just enough pace to challenge ourselves. She sees seashells on the seashore. Again, just like that, she sees seashells on the seashore. If your tongue slips, Where you get stuck, that's completely fine. That's what it's supposed to do. Tongue twisters are designed to trip you up. The magic is not in saying them perfectly, but in what happens because you're trying. You build control. You build awareness. You build flow. I want to take a moment here to talk about the temptation to rush. A lot of learners try to power through exercises like this quickly, thinking that speed equals fluency. But true fluency comes from control first. When you go too fast without control, your speech gets messy. You start blending sounds, skipping syllables, and that's when people start saying, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" We want to avoid that. So instead of chasing speed, I want you to chase precision. Say it so clearly that you could be understood even without context. Let's try a little exercise. I'll guide you through 3 levels of practice. Level 1, slow and exaggerated. Really shape each sound. She sees seashells on the seashore. Level 2, smooth and clear, with natural rhythm. She sees seashells on the seashore. Level 3, confident and fluid, at a moderate pace. She sees seashells on the seashore. You can go back and repeat any level as many times as you want. In fact, I recommend choosing one level each day and staying with it until it feels easy. Don't feel like you need to master it all in one session. The power of this practice is in repetition over time. This kind of exercise is perfect for starting your day or warming up before speaking English in public. I sometimes suggest it to students right before a presentation, an interview, or even a casual conversation in English. It gets your mouth and mind working together. It builds momentum. And most importantly, it gives you a few moments to focus on your voice, your sound, and your rhythm, without pressure. Let me also suggest that you record yourself. You can use your phone, a voice memo app, or anything that lets you listen back. Say the tongue twister 3 times at different speeds, then play it back. You'll notice where you sound clear and where you stumble. And that awareness is gold. It helps you adjust your speaking habits not only in tongue twisters but also in real conversations. One of the things I love most about using tongue twisters in teaching is that they create small, achievable goals. They're short. They're fun. And they give you instant feedback. When you can say one clearly, you know you've made progress. You feel it. You hear it. That sense of achievement is important. It keeps you motivated to continue, to explore more sounds, and to keep growing in your English journey. So anytime you feel stuck with pronunciation, or you're just not sure how to practice speaking without a partner, come back to something simple like this. Tongue twisters are your personal gym for your mouth and brain. And like any good workout, you don't have to do it for hours. Just 5 minutes a day of focused practice can build strength, agility, and control in your speech. You can even build a small routine around it. Right after brushing your teeth or before your morning coffee, stand in front of a mirror and say, "She sees seashells on the seashore." Try it 5 times. Then close your eyes and say it again. Smile at yourself when you get it right. Laugh when you get it wrong. The important thing is to keep going. The more you enjoy the process, the faster you improve. One of the most important things I've learned from working with English learners from all over the world is that everyone has their own unique set of pronunciation challenges. It doesn't matter where you're from or how long you've been studying, there's always at least one sound that just doesn't seem to cooperate. And that's completely normal. In fact, those struggles are part of what makes your learning process personal. Your native language shapes how your mouth moves, how your ears recognize sounds, and even what sounds feel natural to you. When you start speaking English, you're not just learning new words, you're retraining your entire speaking system. That takes time, and it takes patience. Let's talk about some of the most common pronunciation challenges I've seen in my students. If you recognize yourself in any of these, take that as a sign that you're not alone. These patterns show up all around the world, and they're nothing to be ashamed of. Our goal isn't to eliminate your accent or force you to sound like someone else. It's to help you speak clearly, so you can be understood with confidence. That's what really matters. Point one of the biggest challenges is their sound in English. Unlike the softer R in many other languages, English R is strong and pronounced further back in the mouth. For example, in words like read, right, or really, the tongue pulls back slightly and the lips stay tight. Learners from places like Paris, Madrid, or Warsaw often find this sound tricky because their native R is made closer to the front of the mouth or even with the throat. And because of that, their R in English might come out sounding too soft or not quite complete. Then there's the L sound. Now, this one is interesting because it seems simple, but it's very easy to get wrong without realizing it. In English, we have a light L as in love, where the tongue touches the top of your mouth gently, and a dark L, like in call, where the sound is deeper and happens more in the back of the mouth. For many learners, especially those from East Asia or Central Europe, this sound can blend with R, and suddenly lake becomes rake, or light becomes right. You can see how quickly pronunciation affects meaning. That's why we practice slowly, with awareness, so we don't just repeat mistakes, we replace them with better habits. Another common challenge is the V and W confusion. These two sounds are close, but the way they're produced is completely different. The V sound, like in voice or very, is made by placing your top teeth gently on your bottom lip and adding a small vibration. The W sound, like in water or window, is made with rounded lips, like you're about to whistle. It's a smooth sound, without vibration. Learners from countries like Germany, Poland, or Japan often mix these up because their native language might not distinguish clearly between the two. So you'll hear someone say wine when they mean vine, or west instead of vest. The listener might still understand, but it can cause confusion or break the rhythm of the conversation. There's also the famous TH sound we talked about earlier, which continues to be one of the hardest for learners around the world. That sound doesn't exist in many languages, and it requires you to place your tongue between your teeth and blow air out gently. It's used in words like think, thanks, this, and that. Learners often replace it with S, Z, T, or D, depending on what feels more familiar. So thank you becomes thank you, or this becomes dis. Again, the message often gets through, but the clarity suffers. The solution isn't to feel bad about it, it's to notice the pattern and start training your mouth to move in a new way. When you listen to yourself or get feedback from someone, it's easy to feel frustrated. But here's something I want you to remember. Pronunciation is not about perfection, it's about progress. Every step forward counts. You don't have to fix everything at once. The key is to identify your weak spots and work on them slowly, with consistency and curiosity. That's the mindset that leads to real improvement. I often tell my students to approach their pronunciation like a scientist. Be curious. Observe what sounds feel difficult. Ask yourself what your mouth is doing. Try to compare your sound to a native speaker's. And when it doesn't match, instead of judging yourself, try to understand why. Maybe your tongue is too high, or your lips aren't rounded enough. These are small adjustments, but they make a big difference. Recording your voice is a great way to do this. Choose a short sentence, record yourself saying it, then compare it to a native speaker's version. Don't just listen for the accent, listen for the shape of the words, the rhythm, the stress, and the clarity of each sound. This isn't about sounding like someone else. It's about making your English easier for others to understand, so you can express yourself freely and confidently. And yes, I know that listening to your own voice can be uncomfortable at first. Most people don't like how they sound on recordings. But that discomfort is part of growth. It's how you become more aware of what your listener hears. And with awareness comes change. The more you do it, the less strange it feels. It becomes part of your learning routine. Some of the learners I work with choose just one sound per week to focus on. For example, they'll say, "This week, I'm working on their sound," and every day they'll practice 5 or 10 words that contain that sound. They might use a tongue twister, or just repeat the words in a sentence. The next week, they move on to a different sound. That kind of focused practice creates momentum. It's simple, and it works. What I want more than anything is for you to feel empowered in your English journey. If you struggle with certain sounds, that doesn't mean you're not good at languages. It just means you're still training your mouth to do something new. And that's a sign of progress. Every time you notice a mistake and try again, you're building new pathways in your brain. You're growing. So I encourage you to think about which sounds are hardest for you. Maybe it's V and W, or R and L. Maybe it's TH, or the final sounds in words like walked and liked. Whatever it is, don't push it away. Don't say, "I'll never get this right." Instead, say, "This is my next step." Own it. Explore it. And remember that clarity is more important than speed. Connection is more important than perfection. You are already doing something brave by speaking in a second language. Let that give you strength as you practice, and if today you notice just one small detail about your pronunciation that you hadn't noticed before, that's already a win. That awareness is where real change begins. Let me introduce you to Emma. She's a marketing professional in her early 30s from Stockholm, working for a tech company that often collaborates with international clients. Emma's English had always been strong. She was confident in writing emails, giving presentations, and handling negotiations. But there was one small issue that kept bothering her, something that most of her colleagues didn't mention out loud, but she could feel it every time she spoke. She constantly confused the R and L sounds. For example, instead of saying light, it came out sounding like right, and right often sounded closer to light. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. After all, her message still got across. But over time, these mix-ups began to affect her confidence. She told me about a meeting where she was presenting a new digital ad campaign and said, "We want the message to be really right and emotional." Someone asked her, "Do you mean right or light?" It was a small question, but it threw her off. She said later, "It's frustrating because I know the word. I know the difference. But in the moment, my mouth just doesn't cooperate." That moment stayed with her. It made her self-conscious, and she started overthinking during meetings, hesitating before saying certain words, or changing them entirely just to avoid the R and L confusion. I've heard this story many times before. The R and L sounds are incredibly tricky for many learners, especially for those whose native languages don't clearly separate the two. Even in Swedish, the R is produced differently, and the difference between R and L can feel subtle to the ear. In English, however, it's quite distinct. Road and load, right and light, rule and lure, these aren't just sound variations. They're different words, with different meanings, and in a business setting, getting them right makes a real difference. When Emma brought this up, I didn't give her a long pronunciation lecture or ask her to memorize rules. Instead, I gave her a short, rhythmic tongue twister that focused specifically on this challenge. Red lorries run regularly on rolling roads. It's a phrase packed with both R and L sounds, switching back and forth in a way that requires precision. It was perfect for her situation, not too long, a little musical, and easy to remember. We talked about how to use it effectively I suggested that instead of sitting at her desk and repeating it like a robot, she should incorporate it into something she already did every day. That way, it would become a natural part of her routine. She chose her afternoon walk. Every day. Around 4:30, she'd take a short break from her computer and go for a 20-minute walk around her neighborhood. That's when she started practicing the tongue twister. Slowly at first, then gradually a bit faster. She focused on exaggerating the R and L sounds so her mouth could feel the difference more clearly. At first, she told me it felt awkward. Her tongue got tangled, and she laughed out loud more than once walking down the street. But she stuck with it. She didn't worry about being perfect. She just repeated the phrase at her own pace, day after day. Red lorries run regularly. On rolling roads. 5 times. 10 times. Then again the next day. Sometimes quietly under her breath. Sometimes aloud when no one was around. After about a week, she began to notice something shift. During meetings, when the word right came up, she paused. Just slightly and said it more clearly. Her tongue started to remember the correct position. Her coworkers didn't say anything at first, but Emma felt the difference. She was less tense, less anxious, and her words came out with more confidence. Then, 2 weeks in, someone on her team said, "Emma, your English sounds smoother these days. Have you been practicing?" She smiled and shared her secret. It wasn't a new course or a fancy app. It was a short, funny phrase she repeated every day while walking. That comment from her coworker meant a lot. Not because it was praise, but because it confirmed what she already felt. She was improving, and others were noticing it too. What I love about Emma's story is that it shows how small, consistent habits can create real, lasting change. She didn't spend hours studying phonetics. She didn't try to eliminate her accent or chase some version of perfect English. She focused on one very specific challenge, R versus L, and tackled it with intention. Her practice wasn't complicated. It was just regular, and that's what made the difference. The tongue twister she used is one I recommend often because it's so effective. Red lorries run regularly on rolling roads. The repetition of the R forces your tongue to pull back slightly and stay in motion, while the L makes you use the front of your mouth more gently. By switching between the two, you're training your speech muscles to become more flexible and responsive. And that flexibility transfers directly into real-life communication. Emma also taught me something valuable about mindset. Instead of being hard on herself for making mistakes, she approached her challenge with curiosity. She asked questions like, "What am I doing with my mouth when I say right, and why does light feel different when I slow it down?" That kind of self-awareness is powerful. It turns frustration into learning. It takes the pressure off and allows progress to happen in a natural, healthy way. So if you're struggling with a specific sound in English, whether it's R and L or something else, I encourage you to take a page from Emma's playbook. Choose one phrase. One short practice. One daily moment. Don't try to fix everything at once. Focus on one clear goal. Make it part of something you already do. And most importantly, stay consistent. Improvement doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet. But one day, someone will say, "Your English sounds better," and you'll know exactly why. Because you showed up. You practiced. You gave your voice time to grow. One of the most helpful and simple tools you can use to improve your pronunciation is already with you, your reflection, and your phone. These two things can transform the way you practice and help you become more confident in how you sound when speaking English. I often recommend this combination to my students because it Gives you exactly what most learners are missing: immediate, honest feedback. Not from a teacher or a friend, but from yourself. And this is where real growth begins, when you can hear, see, and feel your own progress. Let me walk you through how this works. First, stand in front of a mirror. It can be a bathroom mirror, a mirror on your closet door, anything where you can see your whole face clearly. Then, choose a tongue twister you're working on. It doesn't have to be long or difficult. Even something like "She sells seashells by the seashore" or "Red lorries run regularly on rolling roads" is enough. The goal here is not to rush through the words or perform. The goal is to observe. Watch what your mouth is doing. Pay attention to how your lips move, how your tongue shifts, where the tension is. I want you to exaggerate the sounds slightly the first few times. Really push the shapes of the words. Open your mouth more than you normally would. Let your tongue stretch a little further. This might feel strange at first, but it's part of the process. You're becoming more aware of the physical side of speaking, and that's essential when working on pronunciation. English sounds come from specific shapes and movements. Seeing yourself make those shapes helps your brain connect what you hear with what you do. Now, add the second layer: record yourself. Use your phone or any device with a voice recording app. Say the tongue twister 3 times, once slowly, once at a normal pace, and once as fast as you can while still being clear. Then stop and listen. And here's the important part: listen with curiosity, not with judgment. You're not trying to decide if you sound good or bad. You're simply observing. Notice where you stumble. Which words are clear? Which ones feel tight or rushed? Can you hear the difference between S and SH, or L and R? The first time you listen to your own voice, you might feel uncomfortable. Most people do. We're not used to hearing ourselves the way others hear us. Your voice might sound higher or lower than you expected, and that's completely normal. But don't let that discomfort stop you. The more you listen to your own recordings, the more familiar your voice becomes. It stops being strange and starts being useful. What I love about this kind of practice is that it makes you your own coach. You're not just repeating phrases blindly, you're learning how to self-correct. You hear a mistake, and the next time, you adjust. Maybe you round your lips a bit more. Maybe you slow down. Maybe you shift your tongue position slightly. These small corrections are what build real pronunciation skills. And over time, those adjustments become automatic. You won't have to think about them during conversation, they'll just happen naturally. Some of my students ask me, "Julia, how often should I do this?" My answer is always the same: a little bit, often. Even 5 minutes a day can make a difference. You don't have to make a perfect recording. You don't have to watch yourself in the mirror for hours. Just a short, focused session where you say the words, watch your face, listen to your voice, and reflect on what's happening. That's enough to start changing your relationship with your English. Another benefit of this practice is that it helps you track your progress. If you record yourself once a week, you'll start to hear the changes. What felt difficult at the beginning might become smooth. You'll notice the clarity in your sounds. You might even start to like the sound of your own voice. That moment when you listen back and think, "Hey, that actually sounds pretty good," that's when you know it's working. It's also a great way to prepare for real-life situations. Let's say you have a job interview coming up, or a presentation, or even a conversation you've been avoiding because you're nervous. Practice in front of a mirror. Record what you want to say. Listen to it. Adjust. Say it again. This process builds a kind of calm confidence because you're walking into that situation already knowing how your voice sounds, how your words feel, and how to control them. And remember this, you do not need to sound like a native speaker to be a great communicator. That idea has created a lot of unnecessary pressure for learners. What you do need is to be understood. You need to speak clearly, comfortably, and with enough confidence that people listen to what you're saying. Your accent is part of your identity. You don't have to erase it. You just have to make sure your words carry your message. That's the real goal. So the next time you're practicing English and wondering how to get better, take a few minutes with your mirror and your phone. Choose one tongue twister. Say it slowly. Say it clearly. Watch yourself. Listen back. Smile when it goes well. Try again when it doesn't. This small habit gives you more control over your voice. And the more control you have, the more confident you'll feel in every conversation. When I see my students start this practice, I notice something amazing. They stop waiting for someone to correct them. They stop doubting every word they say. They become active participants in their own learning. They listen, they adjust, and they improve on their own. That independence is powerful. It builds trust in your ability, and that trust carries over into every part of your English. So today, I invite you to start. Pick one moment in your day, maybe before breakfast, maybe before bed. Stand in front of the mirror. Speak. Record. Listen. You'll be surprised how much you can learn from yourself when you take the time to pay attention. And over time, you'll not only hear improvement, you'll feel it. In your voice. In your confidence. In the way you carry yourself when you speak English. One of the biggest mistakes I see English learners make, especially those who are motivated and serious about improving, is trying to fix everything at once. They come to me and say, "Julia, I need help with my TH sound, and my R sound, and the V versus W, and sometimes I don't know if I'm saying the word stress correctly, and people don't always understand me when I say certain phrases." I understand that feeling. When you become more aware of your pronunciation, suddenly everything seems urgent. You start noticing all the small things that don't sound quite right, and the natural instinct is to try to fix them all immediately. But the truth is, that kind of approach doesn't work. It's overwhelming. It's exhausting. And most importantly, it's not effective. That's why I always encourage my students to slow down and simplify. The secret to real improvement is not doing more, it's doing less, but doing it with more focus. Choose just one sound. Not two, not five. Just one. Find the sound that causes you the most frustration, or the one that appears often in the words you use daily. And for 1 week, maybe even 2, make that sound your focus. It becomes your project, your mini pronunciation mission. Everything else can wait. Let me walk you through what this looks like. Let's say the sound you want to work on is the TH sound. This one is tricky for many learners, and I've talked about it before. Start by choosing a short tongue twister that emphasizes this sound. Something like 3 thin thieves thought 1,000 thoughts. Write it down. Say it out loud. Once, slowly. Feel what your tongue is doing. Is it between your teeth? Are you blowing air gently? Is the sound coming out clearly? If not, slow down even more. Go word by word. Once you've chosen your sound and your phrase, the next step is to build a tiny routine around it. And I do mean tiny. You don't need a 30-minute practice session. In fact, most people don't need more than 5 minutes a day. But those 5 minutes should be focused and intentional. Every morning, before you check your phone or drink your coffee, repeat your tongue twister 5 times. The first time slowly, the second time a little faster, and so on until the 5th time feels strong but still clear. Then move on with your day. That's it. You can repeat the routine again later in the afternoon or before bed, but don't worry if you only do it once a day. What matters most is that you show up consistently. That's how habits form. That's how your mouth learns to make new shapes. That's how your brain learns to hear new sounds. Not by cramming everything into one long session, but by returning to one focused practice again and again until it starts to feel easy. I once worked with a student named Lucas, a software engineer from Vienna. He was incredibly detail-oriented, which made him a great programmer, but it also meant he was constantly overanalyzing his pronunciation. He wanted to fix everything all at once. After just 1 week of trying to work on 5 different sounds, he felt more confused than when he started. He told me, "I think I'm worse now. My brain is mixing everything up." I said, "That makes perfect sense. You're not giving your brain enough time to absorb anything. Let's try something different." We picked just one sound, the W sound, and one short tongue twister. Willie's weathered wooden whistle won't work. That's the only thing he practiced for 10 days. Every day, same time, same phrase. He said it in front of a mirror, recorded himself, and slowly began to notice the difference between W and V, which had been a major challenge for him. At the end of the 10 days, we added another tongue twister with the same sound. And kept going. His speech became more consistent, his confidence grew, and more importantly, he wasn't overwhelmed anymore. He was finally making progress because he gave himself permission to slow down. That's what I want for you. I want you to know that you don't need to do it all at once. You don't need to fix your pronunciation overnight. You're not behind. You're not doing it wrong. You just need to create space to focus. You need a structure that allows your brain and mouth to catch up with your desire to improve. Another benefit of choosing one sound at a time is that it sharpens your listening. Once you focus on a sound like L, for example, you start noticing it everywhere, in podcasts, in conversations, in movies. Suddenly, it's not just a letter anymore, it's a sound you hear and recognize and start to copy naturally. That awareness grows quietly, and without much effort, you begin adjusting how you speak in real time. But it all begins with that first, focused practice. So let's make it practical. Right now, think about which sound feels difficult for you. Don't overthink it. Just choose one. Maybe it's the R sound, like in red or river. Maybe it's the S versus SH, like in sip versus ship. Or maybe it's the final ed sound in past tense verbs like walked, played, and wanted. Once you've chosen, find or create a short tongue twister that uses that sound. It doesn't need to be complicated. You can even make one up if it helps. Something playful that makes you smile. The goal is to turn it into a habit you actually enjoy. Write your phrase somewhere you can see it, on a sticky note near your mirror, on the front of your notebook, or in your phone's reminders. Then repeat it each day with attention. You'll start noticing how the sound becomes easier, how your speech gets clearer, and how your confidence grows. And when you're ready, you can move on to a new sound. But only when you're ready to. I know how tempting it is to want fast results. We all want to wake up tomorrow speaking more clearly, more fluently, more like the version of ourselves we imagine in our heads. But the path to that version isn't built on pressure. It's built on patience and precision. And one clear goal at a time. So next time you feel overwhelmed by all the things you want to improve, take a breath. Choose one sound, one phrase, one moment. Give it your full attention. Trust the process. because consistency, more than complexity, will take you further than you think. Let me tell you about Leah. She's a fashion intern living in Paris, working at a design agency known for its bold ideas and fast-paced meetings. Leah has always loved the English language. She reads articles, watches documentaries, and even follows English-speaking fashion blogs. Her listening skills were strong, and she understood nearly everything that was said in meetings with international clients. But when it came to speaking, she often held back. Not because she didn't know what to say, but because of one sound that always made her hesitate, the W sound. For a long time, Leah avoided certain words when she spoke English. Words like wonderful, weather, and were made her nervous because her W sounded too much like V. Instead of weather, it came out sounding like vetter, and instead of we, she said V. She once told me that she would rewrite her ideas during meetings just to avoid using those words. It wasn't that she didn't have valuable thoughts, she just didn't feel confident saying them out loud. That's something I hear a lot, and it always breaks my heart a little. You can have all the ideas, all the knowledge, all the vocabulary, but if a small pronunciation issue makes you hold your voice back, it starts to affect how you see yourself in English. What I admire about Leah is that she didn't give up. One day after a presentation where she chose not to speak, she came to me and said, "I need to fix this. I don't want to keep avoiding words because of one sound." That's where we started, with that one small goal, becoming more comfortable with the W sound. I gave her a simple, rhythmic tongue twister that focuses on exactly that, whether the weather is warm or whether the weather is not. It's a fun one, full of W sounds that force your mouth to move in a very specific way. The key to making a strong English W is rounding your lips, almost like you're going to blow a kiss or whistle. The sound is smooth, made with breath and shape, not with vibration like the V. We broke the sentence down together. First, we said it slowly, whether the weather is warm or whether the weather is not. She practiced saying each word carefully, noticing when her lips didn't round enough or when her tongue slipped into V instead of W. She laughed at herself when she made mistakes, but she didn't stop. I told her, this isn't about being perfect. It's about getting familiar with your own voice and creating a new habit. Leah decided to build a little routine around it. Every morning before work, while getting dressed or making coffee, she would repeat the tongue twister 5 times. At first, she whispered it. Then she started saying it louder. Some days, she looked at herself in the mirror while practicing to check her lip shape. Other days, she recorded herself on her phone and listened back. It became a private moment of focus before stepping into a very public and sometimes intimidating environment. And it gave her a sense of control. No one else even knew she was doing it, but it was making a difference. After a week of consistent practice, she noticed something. During a meeting, the word weather came up, and instead of avoiding it, she said it. Not perfectly, but clearly enough that no one paused or looked confused. It felt like a win. That little moment gave her courage. She kept going with her routine, and by the end of 2 weeks, she started speaking more in meetings, not just once, but multiple times. Her voice didn't shake the way it used to. She still thought about the W sound, but it didn't stop her anymore. What stood out to me wasn't just her improvement, but her mindset. She approached the challenge with patience. She didn't expect a miracle in a day. She chose one sound, one tongue twister, and one daily moment to focus on it. That kind of discipline, that kind of kindness to yourself during the learning process, is so powerful. Leah didn't try to eliminate her accent or change the way she spoke entirely. She just wanted to speak clearly and be understood. And that's exactly what happened. I remember her telling me one morning, "I used to feel small when I opened my mouth in English. Now I feel like myself." That's what pronunciation work is really about, not chasing perfection, but finding your voice. In another language. When you fix one small habit, one tricky sound, it doesn't just change the way you speak, it changes how you show up in conversations. You stop shrinking. You stop editing your thoughts. You start owning your space. The reason tongue twisters work so well is because they train the muscles we use to speak. They're not just for fun, they're focus drills. And when you repeat the same phrase daily, you give your brain and mouth time to learn the correct movement together. It's like building muscle memory. Over time, your W stops feeling awkward and starts coming out naturally, even when you're not thinking about it. Leah's choice of tongue twister, whether the weather is warm or whether the weather is not, is a great one for W practice because the sound appears over and over again in different word positions. You have weather, warm, and not, all in a small loop that helps you feel the rhythm of English as well as the sound itself. It becomes almost like a song. And once it gets into your muscle memory, it's with you whenever you speak. So if you find yourself avoiding certain words or doubting how you sound, I want you to think about Leah's story. Pick one sound that's holding you back. Don't make a list of 10. Just one. Then find a short phrase or tongue twister that uses that sound clearly. Say it every morning, just a few times. Listen to yourself. Don't rush. Don't expect perfection. Just build the habit. Build the feeling of being in control of your words. Over time, that one small practice can change the way you speak, the way you feel, and the way others hear you, and if no one notices your progress. At first, that's okay. You'll notice. You'll feel it. You'll speak without second guessing. And that's what makes all the difference. Like Leah, you'll stop avoiding the words that matter. You'll say them with clarity, with confidence, and with your own voice leading the way. One of the biggest challenges when learning English, or really any new skill, is making practice a regular habit. It's easy to feel motivated at first. But then life gets busy, distractions appear, and before you know it, weeks go by without focusing on pronunciation at all. So today, I want to share a simple way to turn your tongue twister practice into a daily habit that fits naturally into your life. The key is to start small, stay consistent, and make it fun. Let's start with the idea of a morning routine. You don't need a big chunk of time to practice pronunciation. In fact, I recommend starting with just 2 minutes a day. That's it. 2 minutes can make a huge difference if you use them intentionally. Pick your tongue twister, the one you want to work on. It might be red lorries run regularly on rolling roads if you're focusing on the R and L sounds. Or maybe whether the weather is warm or whether the weather is not for the W sound. Choose the phrase that feels right for your current challenge. Now here's the secret to success. Attach your practice to something you already do every morning. This is called a trigger and habit formation. For example, brushing your teeth is something most of us do every day without fail. So, right after brushing your teeth, you say your tongue twister 5 times, slowly at first, then a bit faster. Or maybe you make a cup of coffee or tea in the morning. While you're waiting for the water to boil or pouring the milk, that's your moment to say your tongue twister. It's a small, simple action linked to a routine you already have, so it's easier to remember. Why does this work? Because our brains love routines. When you link a new behavior to an existing habit, it becomes part of a natural sequence. The trigger reminds you to do the next action without needing extra motivation. After a few days, saying your tongue twister after brushing your teeth or during coffee prep feels automatic. You don't have to think about it. It's just part of your morning. Let's talk about how to do the practice itself. Don't worry about speed or perfection. The goal is clarity and awareness. Say your tongue twister slowly and clearly. Feel your mouth making the sounds. Notice how your lips, tongue, and jaw move. Maybe even exaggerate the movements a little, it helps your muscles learn faster. After a few repetitions, try saying the phrase a little faster but keep it clear. If you trip up, slow down again. It's not a race. One thing I encourage is to enjoy the silly side of this practice. Tongue twisters sound funny when you say them out loud, especially if you're pushing yourself to say them clearly and fast. Laugh at yourself if your tongue gets tied. Celebrate the little wins when you get through a tricky phrase without stumbling. When you allow yourself to enjoy the process, it becomes less of a chore and more of a game. And games are easier too. Stick with the I remember a student from London, Sarah, who hated the S sound in English. She always felt like it slipped away when she spoke quickly. I suggested she practice the tongue twister. She sells seashells by the seashore every morning while getting ready. At first, she felt awkward and thought it was silly. But after a few days, she started to look forward to it. It was her private moment of fun before the busy day. She told me, "It's like a little challenge to myself, and I don't want to mess it up." That kind of attitude makes all the difference. If you're worried about forgetting, set reminders on your phone. A simple alarm with the message "tongue twister time" can be a helpful nudge. Or write your tongue twister on a sticky note. And place it somewhere you'll see it in the morning, like your bathroom mirror or your coffee maker. Visual reminders work well because they keep your goal front and center. Over time, you can build on your habit. Maybe after a few weeks of mastering one tongue twister, you add a second one or practice twice a day. But I always suggest focusing on quality over quantity. 2 minutes of focused, mindful practice beats 20 minutes of distracted repetition. Any day. Another benefit of a daily habit is how it changes your mindset. When you commit to practicing regularly, you start seeing yourself as a learner who takes action. You stop waiting for the right moment or enough time. You show up for yourself. And that kind of self-trust builds confidence that carries over into your conversations in English. Also, practicing in the morning sets a positive tone for your day. It's a small achievement before breakfast, a moment of connection to your goals. And because pronunciation practice is active and physical, it wakes up your mouth and brain. You'll find yourself speaking more clearly, even in your first conversations of the day. So here's what I want you to do after listening to this episode. Choose one tongue twister to focus on. Decide what your morning trigger will be. Maybe it's brushing your teeth, making coffee, or even putting on your shoes. Then, commit to saying your tongue twister for 2 minutes every morning after that trigger. Remember to smile, enjoy the challenge, and forgive yourself if you miss a day. Habits take time to build, but every step counts, and if you want to make your practice even more engaging, try recording yourself during your 2-minute session. Listen back and notice your progress. It's a great way to celebrate your wins and identify small areas to improve without pressure. Starting a daily habit like this isn't just about pronunciation. It's about showing up for yourself every day, building confidence, and making English a natural part of your life. So let's make it simple, fun, and consistent. You'll be surprised how much you can improve with just a couple of focused minutes each morning. Let me share with you a story about Oscar, a graphic designer from Berlin. Oscar works for a creative agency in the heart of the city, and like many of us, he spends a significant part of his day commuting. For him, the commute wasn't just a way to get from point A to point B, it became an unexpected opportunity to improve his English pronunciation. I always love hearing about how people turn everyday moments into learning moments, and Oscar's story is a perfect example. Oscar told me that he was initially frustrated with his English pronunciation, especially when he had client calls or presentations with international teams. He felt that sometimes his words weren't clear enough, which made him hesitant to speak up. But he also realized he didn't have large chunks of time to dedicate to formal practice. His days were full, and squeezing in extra study sessions felt overwhelming. One morning, while sitting on the subway, Oscar had an idea. He remembered that tongue twisters are a powerful tool to train the mouth and improve clarity. So he decided to turn his commute into a practice session, but with a twist. Since he was in public, he wouldn't say the tongue twisters out loud. Instead, he repeated them silently in his mind, focusing on the mouth movements as if he was saying the words. It became a kind of mental game, a way to keep his brain alert and his pronunciation muscles engaged even while on the move. He started with simple tongue twisters, like "She sells seashells by the seashore" and read, "Lorries run regularly on rolling roads." At first, it felt strange to move his mouth silently, but he quickly noticed that his tongue and lips still had to move correctly to say the words in his head. This helped him become more aware of the shapes his mouth needed to make to pronounce English sounds clearly. After a few days, Oscar added a new twist to his routine. On quieter moments of his commute, he would whisper the tongue twisters softly, barely audible but enough to hear himself. This gave him real-time feedback without disturbing anyone around him. He found this balance between silent practice and whispering really effective because it made him more conscious of how the words sounded and felt when spoken. Over the weeks, this daily mental and whispered practice started to make a difference. Oscar noticed that during client calls, he was pronouncing words more clearly and confidently. The R sounds, which had been tricky for him, became smoother. The TH sounds, which used to slow him down, were no longer stumbling blocks. He wasn't perfect, but the improvement was noticeable, and that boosted his confidence more than anything else. What really impressed me about Oscar's approach was how he used small pockets of time that many people overlook. His commute wasn't lost time anymore. It was a productive, focused session that required no extra preparation or equipment. It was consistent, simple, and perfectly tailored to his lifestyle. This idea of silent or whispered practice might feel unusual at first, but it's incredibly effective, especially for people who want to practice regularly without needing a private space. I often suggest this to students who are shy about practicing out loud or who spend a lot of time in public places. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment or the perfect place to practice English. You can start wherever you are, even on a crowded train. Another benefit Oscar found was that this kind of practice helped reduce his anxiety about speaking. By silently rehearsing tricky phrases, he was training his mouth and brain without the pressure of being heard or judged. That practice translated into real-life situations because he felt more prepared. His mouth was warmed up, his tongue was flexible, and his confidence was rising. If you think about it, practicing silently or whispering tongue twisters can be a form of mindful learning. It requires focus, attention, and a connection between your mind and your body. You're not just repeating sounds, you're tuning into how your mouth moves, how your breath flows, and how your voice shapes the language. That awareness is the foundation of good pronunciation. So, if you have a daily routine that involves waiting, whether it's commuting, standing in line, or sitting in a quiet moment, try turning that time into a mini pronunciation session. Choose one tongue twister and repeat it silently in your mind. Focus on the shape of your mouth and the movement of your tongue. If possible, whisper it softly. Notice how it feels to say the sounds correctly. This simple habit can make a big difference, just like it did for Oscar. His story reminds me that progress doesn't always require big, dramatic changes. Sometimes, it's about using small moments creatively and consistently. It's about turning everyday activities into opportunities for growth. And most importantly, it's about believing that every little practice counts toward becoming a clearer, more confident English speaker. Imagine yourself on your next commute, quietly practicing a tongue twister, feeling your mouth becoming more flexible, your words becoming clearer. That small habit will help you speak with more confidence when it's your turn to talk. You'll feel more prepared, more in control, and more ready to share your ideas. And that's a powerful step toward fluency when we talk about improving English pronunciation. Many learners immediately think about the individual sounds, the tricky th, the difference between r and l, or how to make that clear w sound. And yes, those sounds are important. But pronunciation is about so much more than just making the right sounds. It's also about rhythm, stress, and intonation, the musical qualities of English that bring the language to life and make it easier to understand. Tongue twisters are often seen as a tool for speed and articulation, and they certainly help with those. But what I want to highlight today is how tongue twisters also play a crucial role in helping you master the rhythm and intonation of English. Rhythm is the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables in speech. Intonation is the rise and fall of your voice as you speak, which helps convey meaning, emotion, and intention. Together, they create the natural flow that native speakers use without even thinking about it. When you say a tongue twister, you're not just repeating sounds, you're practicing the melody of English. The natural flow of English is different from many other languages. It doesn't sound like a machine producing sounds one after another. Instead, it has a pulse, a rhythm, that helps listeners follow the speaker's ideas easily. When you focus on this rhythm, your speech becomes smoother and more pleasant to listen to. People will find it easier to understand you, and you'll sound more natural. Let me explain how tongue twisters help with this. When you say a tongue twister slowly at first, you pay attention to where the strong beats are. For example, in She sells seashells by the seashore, notice how certain words or syllables stand out more than others. She sells seashells by the shore. These stressed syllables create a pattern that your mouth and brain start to recognize. As you practice, your mouth learns not only how to say the sounds but also how to place emphasis on the right parts of the phrase. Intonation is equally important. It's the way your voice rises and falls during a sentence. Intonation helps you show whether you're asking a question, making a statement, expressing surprise, or giving emphasis. Many learners struggle with intonation because it doesn't always follow the same rules as grammar or vocabulary. But tongue twisters give you a chance to practice this musical quality without the pressure of forming complex sentences. When you repeat tongue twisters, try to imagine them like a little song or rhythm pattern. You can even clap your hands or tap your fingers to the rhythm as you say the phrase. This makes the practice more engaging and helps your brain connect the sound of the words with their rhythm. You begin to feel the natural pulse of English inside your body, not just your mouth. I remember working with a student named David from Barcelona. David had good pronunciation of individual sounds, but his speech often sounded flat or robotic. When we introduced tongue twisters with a focus on rhythm and intonation, everything changed for him. I encouraged him to say the tongue twisters like he was telling a story or singing a little tune. After a few weeks of practice, his English started to sound more lively, and people told him they enjoyed listening to him more. He was thrilled because he felt like he was finally connecting with his listeners. It's important to understand that rhythm and intonation also help your own understanding. When you speak with natural stress and melody, you make your speech clearer for yourself as well as for others. Your brain organizes your thoughts better because the language flows logically. This means you'll find it easier to express yourself without hesitating or stumbling over words. Now, let's try a little exercise together. Choose a tongue twister, maybe red lorries run regularly on rolling roads. Say it slowly at first, paying attention to which syllables feel stronger. You might notice red lorries run regularly on rolling roads. Say it again, but this time let your voice rise slightly on the stressed syllables and fall on the unstressed ones. Imagine you're telling a story, or giving a report with some excitement. Feel your voice move up and down naturally. With practice, this rhythm and intonation will become automatic. You won't have to think about it because your brain and mouth will work together seamlessly. Your speech will sound more confident, more engaging, and definitely more understandable. So when you practice tongue twisters, don't just focus on saying them fast or getting every sound perfect. Pay attention to the music in the language. Notice the beats, the stress, the rises and falls in your voice. This will help you sound more like a native speaker and will make your English easier and more enjoyable to listen to. This approach also reminds you that speaking English is not just about correctness. It's about communication and connection. Rhythm and intonation are powerful tools to help you express your personality and emotions in English. They make your words come alive. If you want to take your pronunciation practice a step further, try listening to native speakers, not just their words, but their rhythm and intonation. Watch movies, listen to podcasts, or pay attention to conversations around you. Notice how their voices move. Then, try to imitate that melody using your tongue twisters. It's a wonderful way to bring natural flow into your own speech. Remember, your goal is not to sound like a perfect native speaker, but to speak clearly and naturally so people want to listen to you. Rhythm and intonation are part of what makes English so dynamic and interesting, and mastering them will give you a huge boost in your confidence and communication skills. So, next time you practice your tongue twisters, slow down enough to hear the music of the language. Feel the rhythm in your body. Let your voice rise and fall naturally. This is the secret to speaking English that is both clear and enjoyable to hear. It's a skill you can develop, and it will open many doors for you as you continue your English journey. One of the best ways to improve your English pronunciation and keep your practice exciting is to do it with others. Practicing alone has its benefits, but when you bring friends or fellow learners into the mix, it creates a whole new energy that can motivate you and make the process a lot more enjoyable. That's why today I want to talk about group practice and how joining or starting a tongue twister challenge can boost your learning and help you stay consistent. Speaking English clearly and confidently can sometimes feel like a solo journey, but it doesn't have to be that way. When you practice with a partner or a small group, you create a supportive environment where everyone encourages each other. It's a space where mistakes are welcomed as part of learning, not something to be ashamed of. This pressure-free atmosphere is key because it removes the fear of judgment that many learners feel when speaking English. Instead, it becomes a fun social activity that everyone looks forward to. Imagine you have a friend, a classmate, or even an online connection who is also interested in improving their pronunciation. You can agree to practice tongue twisters together regularly. Maybe you meet once a week online or in person and take turns sharing your favorite tongue twister. You say it slowly at first, then try to say it faster, laughing at the silly sounds and encouraging each other along the way. This shared experience makes practicing feel less like a task and more like a game. One great idea I often suggest is creating a Twister of the Day challenge within your group. Each day or each meeting, someone picks a tongue twister for everyone to practice. It could be a classic one like "She sells seashells by the seashore" or something new and creative. The goal is not to compete but to motivate each other to keep practicing consistently. You can even set small goals, like saying the tongue twister 3 times clearly, or trying it at a faster pace without stumbling. This kind of challenge brings a sense of community and accountability. When you know your friends are waiting to hear your progress, it encourages you to practice more regularly. Plus, it's a wonderful opportunity to hear different accents and styles, which broadens your understanding of English pronunciation. You start noticing how others tackle the same tongue twister, which can give you new ideas on how to improve your own speech. I remember working with a group of learners from different countries, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain, who created a weekly tongue twister session. They called it their Twister Club. Every Thursday evening, they met online to share tongue twisters and practice together. The atmosphere was relaxed and full of laughter. They often joked about whose tongue got the most twisted that week. But beneath the fun, their pronunciation improved dramatically over just a few months. They told me it was the group support and friendly competition that kept them coming back. Another benefit of group practice is that it helps with listening skills. When you listen to others say tongue twisters, you become more aware of how words should sound. You can catch mistakes in your own speech by comparing it to what you hear. And when someone corrects you gently, it's easier to accept and learn because you're all in the same learning boat. If you don't have friends nearby who want to practice, the internet is a great place to find language partners. Many websites and apps connect language learners around the world. You can join groups focused on pronunciation and start your own tongue twister challenge. Or even better, invite others to form a small group where you can meet regularly through video calls. This way, you get the benefits of group practice no matter where you live. Starting your own challenge is easier than you think. Begin by inviting 1 or 2 people who are interested. Pick a regular time to meet, even if it's just once a week. Share tongue twisters via chat or email during the week so everyone can practice in advance. When you meet, take turns saying your tongue twisters. Give each other positive feedback and celebrate progress, no matter how small. The key is to keep it lighthearted and fun. Don't focus on perfection. Instead, focus on showing up and practicing together. The social connection creates a positive environment that makes it easier to stay motivated over the long term. If you've been practicing tongue twisters alone, I encourage you to find someone to practice with or start a small group. You'll be surprised at how much more enjoyable and effective your practice can become. A Twister of the Day challenge is a simple way to add structure and excitement to your learning. It turns a sometimes difficult task into a shared experience full of encouragement and growth. Remember, learning a language is not just about hard work. It's about connection. When you practice with others, you build relationships that support your learning journey. You laugh, you learn, and you improve together. That sense of belonging and mutual support is invaluable. It makes the process more human and less lonely. Reach out to a friend, a colleague, or an online language partner today. Invite them to join your tongue twister challenge. Share your favorite phrases, encourage each other, and celebrate every small victory. The community you build around your practice will be a powerful force that pushes you forward. Together, you'll make your English pronunciation clearer, your speech more confident, and your learning journey more joyful. Let me share with you the story of Sophia, an English teacher from Lisbon who found a unique way to improve her own pronunciation, while also helping others. Sophia has been teaching English for several years, and she's always been passionate about finding creative tools to support her students. One day, she realized that practicing pronunciation can sometimes feel lonely or even intimidating for learners. She wanted to create a space where people could practice together, laugh, and grow without pressure. That's how Sophia's idea for a weekly online tongue twister club was born. She invited a few friends and colleagues, some were fellow teachers, others were English learners at different levels, to join her. They set up a video call once a week, a time everyone could commit to easily. The goal was simple: practice tongue twisters together, share new phrases, and support each other's progress. What started as a practical tool to improve pronunciation quickly became much more. In their first meeting, Sophia introduced classic tongue twisters like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers and how can a clam cram in a clean cream can. The group laughed as they stumbled over the tricky sounds, and the atmosphere immediately felt relaxed and friendly. Sophia made sure to remind everyone that mistakes were a natural part of learning and that the focus was on having fun and improving. Bit by bit, each week, the group members took turns bringing new tongue twisters to share. Some of the twisters were short and simple, focusing on common problem sounds like th, r, or l. Others were longer, more challenging phrases. That pushed everyone to improve their clarity and speed. The variety kept the sessions interesting and helped the group members target different areas of their pronunciation. What I found inspiring about Sophia's club was how it became a community beyond just pronunciation practice. The members started sharing tips about other learning strategies, recommended English podcasts or books, and talked about their language goals. They celebrated each other's achievements, whether it was finally mastering a difficult phrase or gaining the courage to speak up in a meeting. For Sophia, the Tongue Twister Club was more than just a practice session. It was a confidence booster. She noticed how her own pronunciation improved, but more importantly, she felt more comfortable using English in her daily life. She stopped worrying so much about sounding perfect and started focusing on clear communication. That shift in mindset was contagious and affected everyone in the group. One of the members, Miguel, who works in finance and had struggled with the RNTH sounds, told Sophia that the weekly meetings helped him gain the confidence to lead a client presentation in English. Another member, Aisha, a student from Morocco, said the club helped her overcome her fear of speaking and gave her a chance to practice pronunciation in a supportive environment. Sophia's story reminds us that learning is not just an individual effort, it's a social experience. When you connect with others who share your goals, learning becomes more enjoyable and sustainable. The club created a safe space where people could take risks, make mistakes, and grow together. That sense of belonging helped everyone push through the challenges that often come with mastering a new language. If you're feeling stuck or isolated in your pronunciation practice, I encourage you to think about creating your own Twister club or joining one. It doesn't have to be formal or complicated. Even a small group of 2 or 3 people can make a big difference. You can meet online or in person, once a week or even once every 2 weeks. The important thing is to have a regular, supportive space where you can practice and encourage each other. Starting a group like Sophia's is also a wonderful way to expand your English skills beyond pronunciation. You'll hear different accents, pick up new vocabulary, and gain confidence speaking in front of others. The social aspect helps reduce the fear that often holds learners back. When you know people care about your progress, you're more likely to take chances and speak more openly. Remember that language learning is a journey filled with ups and downs. It's natural to feel frustrated sometimes, but having a community around you can make those moments easier to handle. Sophia's Tongue Twister Club is a perfect example of how a simple idea can grow into something meaningful and transformative. Whether you're an English teacher like Sophia or a learner looking for new ways to practice, consider reaching out to friends, classmates, or online groups to start your own club. Share tongue twisters, laugh together, support each other's progress, and celebrate the small wins. You might be surprised at how much your pronunciation and your confidence can improve when you practice in a group. Sophia's story shows us that practicing pronunciation can be more than just a routine, it can become a source of joy, connection, and empowerment. When we support each other, our voices grow stronger, and our ability to communicate in English becomes clearer. So why not take the first step today? Invite someone to join you, start your own Twister club, and watch how your English journey blossoms in unexpected ways. Before we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with a simple but powerful invitation. Take a moment right now to choose one tongue twister from what we've talked about today, maybe the one that feels the most fun or the one that challenges you the most, and say it out loud 3 times. Yes, out loud. It might feel a bit funny or even awkward at first, and that's perfectly okay. That feeling is part of the process. When you say these tricky phrases aloud, you're training your mouth, your tongue, and your brain to work together in new ways. Try saying your chosen tongue twister slowly at first, paying attention to the sounds and how your mouth moves. Then say it a little faster. Notice how your voice rises and falls, and how the rhythm feels. Don't worry if you stumble or have to repeat it a few times. The important thing is to keep going and enjoy the practice. The more you do this, the easier it will become. Remember, progress in English is not about being perfect or getting it right on the first try. It's about showing up, being consistent, and having the courage to practice even when it feels uncomfortable. I encourage you to reflect on how it feels when you say your tongue twister aloud. Maybe you feel a little silly, or maybe you feel proud that you tried something challenging. Both feelings are valuable. They mean you're stepping out of your comfort zone, and that's where real learning happens. If you want to take your practice a step further, why not share your favorite tongue twister with a friend or a language partner? Teaching others or simply sharing what you're working on can deepen your learning and create a sense of community. If you're feeling bold, you could even post a video or audio clip online. Many people find that sharing their practice publicly motivates them to keep going and connect with others who are on the same journey. Remember, every speaker of English started somewhere, and every one of us had moments when pronunciation felt tricky. Tongue twisters are a fun, effective way to build clarity and confidence, but the real magic happens when you make practice a habit. Keep showing up for yourself, day after day, and celebrate the small wins along the way. So today, take that first step, say your tongue twister out loud 3 times, notice how it feels, and give yourself credit for the effort. I'm proud of you for investing in your English journey, and I'm excited for the progress you're going to make. Keep practicing, stay curious, and don't forget to enjoy the process. Your voice matters, and with every word you speak, you're getting closer to the confident English speaker you want to be.